like it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Judge of Character, shot in glorious DSLR footage. I'm your host Steve, no doubt looking better than before. Well, tonight folks, I'm going to do something a little different. Tonight I'm going to, instead of looking at a certain character, I'm actually going to be looking at a character type. The Mary Sue. None of you know what a Mary Sue is, do you? Time to explain. Mary Sue is actually a technical term referring to a character often found in fan works that is perfect, the ideal character. The term first originated in 1973 when Miss Paula Smith wrote her story A Trekkie's Tale, which was a satire of unrealistic Star Trek fanfiction at the time. What's that, you ask? What's fanfiction? So glad you asked! There's fans for just about anything. Star Trek, Doctor Who, and a whole host of other popular shows, books, movies, and more have something called a fandom. Think of it as a fan kingdom, a fandom. No, not phantom. Each fandom is comprised of like-minded people who enjoy that particular interest. Some are your average fans. Some are a little bit more extreme. And some, well, let's just say that some take it a little too far. One aspect of fandom is fanfiction writing, wherein a person will write a story using the characters and settings of an established canon to create their own stories within that canon. The subject of fanfiction can be a tad bit polarizing with some people. On the one hand, you've got people who think that it's absolutely bonkers and these people should be committed. But on the other hand, you have people who think that it's a great way to learn how to write fiction, as well as a great way of showing your love for the fandom. So who's right? The truth is both. Fanfiction really is a good way for an amateur to learn how to write, as their work is often shown to others who can critique it and offer advice to help the author improve. On the other side of the coin, you get some fanfiction that falls squarely into the territory of weird and somewhat disturbing. Don't believe me? Go Google Agony in Pink, a notorious Power Rangers fanfiction that almost started an international incident. Now me personally, I have no problem with fanfic writers or the fanfiction they write. Hell, I used to write some myself. And it'll never see the light of day. But what does all this have to do with Mary Sue characters, you ask? Like I said at the start, Mary Sue originated from fanfiction. It was originally the name of a satiric character designed to show the flaws of unrealistic fanfiction writing. Since then, it's become a term often used to denote a character that is perfect in every way, often being a self-insertion for the author. It's become a derogatory term now, so much that many authors go out of the way not to create a Mary Sue character. So, what constitutes a Mary Sue, and are they really that bad? Well, that's what we're going to try to find out tonight. As far as what makes a Mary Sue, that's kind of difficult. The requirements for what constitutes a Mary Sue are rather nebulous, and therefore very difficult to pin down. Part of the problem is that some of the more well-known Mary Sue traits have actually been around for much longer than you think, going as far back as the 19th century. So let's just focus on the most common basics. A typical Mary Sue is an originally written character not found in the source material, almost always female, and is often a character that serves as the author avatar for their own wish fulfillment. In addition, they're often described as being exotically beautiful, with a unique hair or eye color, with an exotic and cool-sounding name. They also tend to be exceptionally skilled in many areas, and often have either no flaws whatsoever, or their flaws are supposed to be endearing. Lastly, they tend to have some dramatic backstory, and are often the love interest of a canon character, even if said character already has a significant other in the original work. Still not getting the problem here? Perhaps this little film will help. Roll clip. Meet Billy. Billy is a fan of the movie The Boondock Saints. In fact, Billy is so much of a fan that he wrote his own story about them. But not only did Billy write a story about them, he wrote a story about them featuring a character like him. He's a cool guy with an awesome name.
I'm Murdoch McMurder.
Billy's character is super awesome. He can outgun the Saints with any guns any day. He's also super strong and super smart. He's also a hit with the ladies.
Hey girl, I want to get in that booty. Simple enough.
Yes, Billy's adventures with the Saints are the stuff of legends. Or fanfiction. As you can see, a Mary Sue character is usually a bad thing. In fact, most writers consider having this type of character in the story to be equivalent to committing harakiri. With a spoon.
Why a spoon, cousin? Why not an axe?
Because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more.
Fanfiction is commonly written by amateurs who've either never written anything or have written very little. As such, a lot of fanfiction tends to suffer from poor grammar, unrefined storytelling, and badly written characters, which is where the Mary Sue comes in. When an ill-experienced writer attempts to write a character, they're usually an idealized version of what the writer wants to be. When written into an established canon that the writer is a fan of, the character tends to do the things the writer would like to do if they were in that world. Whether that be a major ass-kicker or just romancing the favorite character. And this is where the derogatory kicks in. While most fanfiction is written by inexperienced writers, there are a few out there who actually do know what they're doing. Problem is that there's some of them, not a whole lot, but some, who believe that these inexperienced writers are, well, beneath them. So instead of offering helpful and friendly advice like most people would, they simply heap on the insults, including the term Mary Sue, and end up making the inexperienced writer feel even worse for their actions. So instead of offering constructive criticism like they should, these meanies instead attack the work, saying hurtful things, including calling the original character a Mary Sue. It's from this that the negative connotations come from. So thanks, assholes. This is why we can't have nice things! But you'd be surprised to learn that Mary Sues exist in professional fiction. While nowhere near as prevalent as the fanfiction version, canon Sues, as they are often called, do exist. You don't normally notice them because the worlds they inhabit are often set up in a way that the traits of the character aren't so extraordinary. But there's still ways to notice them. Now, does the fact that Mary Sue characters are in professional works mean that Mary Sues are bad? Hard to say because it doesn't really answer the question of whether or not they are inherently bad. The simple truth is that it depends. Obviously, an inexperienced writer will likely make a Mary Sue, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem there is that we use the term Mary Sue as a form of insult. Instead of giving the writer advice and helping them, we heap ridicule on them, which has the negative effect of making them wary of writing any original characters, thus depriving them of a valuable learning experience. And while all of the previously mentioned characteristics are the most common ones seen in Mary Sue type characters, having one or two from that list isn't necessarily problematic. The whole point of writing is to entertain, and you can't do that with a boring character. So you have to have something about them that's exciting, something to draw the audience in. But you have to balance the extraordinary with the ordinary. An example of a good Mary Sue is the Doctor from Doctor Who. He fits many of the common traits of the Mary Sue, and yet is the most popular thing in the UK. If the Doctor had been written by a young kid in today's world, he would have been labeled a Mary Sue and likely loathed. However, the Doctor exists in a world that actually allows for almost all of his Mary Sue-ish tendencies. He's an alien, so naturally he has access to alien tech, as well as having a different biology. Thus, many aspects of the character work well. Plus, the Doctor is generally well written with a realism that works. But for every good Mary Sue, there's about 10 bad ones that fit the common trope to a T. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to introduce you to what is most likely the most horrible thing ever written. A fanfiction so bad it requires me to have protection to handle it, featuring a character that perfectly exhibits all of the most common traits of the Mary Sue characteristics. You've been warned. There is a fanfiction, a piece of fan wankery so bad and appalling it has been labeled the worst fanfiction of all time. A fanfiction featuring well-known and loved characters and situations that would make a grown man cry. A fanfiction featuring a Mary Sue character so horribly written that to say it's a character is a crime against humanity. That fanfiction is known as My Immortal. Folks, I have here in my hand what is considered by many to be the worst fanfiction ever written. And we're going to read it. Why? Because if I have to suffer, we all have to suffer. But more importantly, it's so that you can understand exactly how bad a Mary Sue character can get. And the only way to do that is to experience it. So without further ado, a few select readings of my immortal. God help us all. Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, and I have long ebony black hair. That's how I got my name. Really? With purple streaks and red tips that reaches the middle of my back. I have icy blue eyes like limpid tears. A lot of people tell me I look like Amy Lee. Author's note, if you don't know who she is, get the hell out of here. Oh, screw this. There's no way I can do that. My brain would melt in my skull. But I know what I can do.
Yes, yes, burn, burn, purge the evil from this thing. Oh, rid the world of this horror. Oh, burn, burn, burn in the walk of pain. Burn!
I feel better. So yeah, as you might have guessed, the main character of that sordid tale, Ebony, has all of the classic hallmarks of the Mary Sue character. She's got the exotic appearance going for her, she's got the exotic name, has an interesting backstory that we'll learn about later. She's a vampire. Is able to romance just about everybody in the Harry Potter universe, all while complaining how much it sucks to be perfect. Yeah, I can't think of any better example of the typical Mary Sue character. So, in summation.
When you get right down to it, Mary Sues aren't always a bad thing. It depends entirely on how they're written. If you do it right, you can have a story featuring a Mary Sue type character that isn't ridiculous or painful. But to do so requires practice, and in order to get that, you have to keep writing. But it's hard to do so when other writers are calling your original character a Mary Sue as a bad thing. This kind of backlash can cause an amateur writer to stop out of fear of creating such a character. Instead of being afraid of the Mary Sue, embrace it. If you create one, learn from the mistake and use it to do better next time. After all, it takes a few Mary Sues to make a good character.
And that's about it. Anyway, I'm your host, Steve, reminding all of you to stay in character.
Hey, Steve, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jay. Everyone, this is my next-door neighbor and good friend, Jay. What brings you here?
I was just roaming through some old stuff of yours and found this fan fiction.
How did you... Where did... Come with me. Why? Not a word. Hear me? Not a word. But it was